Let's be clear from the start. Most people believe power comes from speaking louder, asserting dominance, and making their presence felt. But what if the real power lies in silence? If you think words alone shape influence, you're missing what Nietzsche understood deeply. True control isn't what you don't say. Think about it. Every time you speak, you give away a piece of yourself. Your opinions, emotions, and thoughts become public knowledge. The more you talk, the more predictable you become. And predictability is weakness. Nietzsche believed that those who could hold their tongue, who could let others wonder what they were thinking, held the real power. When people don't know what you're thinking, they fear making the wrong move. They second-guess them. They become unsure. And in that uncertainty, you gain control. Consider how people react when someone is quiet in a conversation. Silence makes others uncomfortable. It forces them to fill the space, to reveal more than they intended. Nietzsche understood this. He knew that silence could make people anxious, make them try harder to win your approval, make them reveal things they wouldn't say if you had spoken first. The person who speaks less almost always learns more. Now, imagine two leaders. One constantly talks, explaining themselves, justifying their actions, making sure everyone understands them. The other speaks rarely, choosing their words carefully, only speaking when absolutely necessary. Who do you think commands more respect? The one who is predictable and always available, or the one whose words are rare but impactful? Nietzsche knew that people value what is scarce. The less you speak, the more your words matter. But silence isn't just about power in conversation. It's about how you carry yourself in. Nietzsche believed that self-control was one of the highest forms of strength. And what is silence, if not control? The ability to resist the urge to respond immediately, to stay quiet when provoked, to hold back when others expect a reaction. That is real discipline. The moment you react emotionally, you become easy to manipulate. But if you remain silent, if you take a step back and observe instead of engaging, you force the other person to show their hand first. This is why Nietzsche saw silence as more than just a habit. It was a weapon. Those who spoke too much, who revealed their thoughts too freely, were giving away their power without even realizing. He believed that the world belonged to those who could keep their emotions, their plans, and their true selves hidden until the right moment. Think about the last time someone surprised you with their decision. Maybe they didn't argue when you expected them. Maybe they stayed silent when others were yelling. Maybe they walked away instead of reacting. How did it make you feel? Probably uneasy. Probably a little unsure of what they were thinking. That's the effect Nietzsche understood. Silence keeps people guessing. And when people are guessing, they are not in control. You are. Nietzsche didn't just theorize. He lived it. He spent years in isolation, choosing to write, rather than engage in pointless debates. He understood that most conversations are not about truth, but about dominance. He saw how people used words to manipulate, to gain approval, to assert themselves, and he rejected that. Instead, he mastered the art of saying little, but making every word count. Most people fear silence because they think it means weakness. They believe that if they don't defend themselves, if they don't speak up, they will be ignored or overlooked. But Nietzsche would say the opposite is true. Those who always need to explain themselves are the ones who are ignored. Their words become noise, but those who stay silent, people lean in to hear them when they finally speak. If you can control when you speak and when you stay silent, you have already won half the battle. You don't need to be the loudest person in the room. You don't need to argue, justify, or seek approval. You only need to understand one thing. Power belongs to those who don't give themselves away. If you believe constant expression makes you powerful, you're setting yourself up for failure. How many times have you said something you regretted? How many times has your honesty been used against you? Nietzsche knew that the loudest voices are often the weakest, and that silence is a weapon few know how to wield. In today's world, people are encouraged to be transparent, to share their thoughts openly, to constantly speak their mind. But Nietzsche saw the danger in it. He understood that the more you reveal, the more vulnerable you become. Every word you say gives someone an opportunity to judge you, to analyze you, to use your words against you. This is why silence isn't just about power. It's about protection. Think about the way people behave in an argument. The person who speaks first, who rushes to explain, who pours out their emotions, is often the one who loses control. They let their feelings take over, and in doing so, they expose their weaknesses. The one who stays calm, who listens, who doesn't react impulsively, holds the advantage. Nietzsche understood this. He knew that those who are easily provoked are easily manipulated. When you react without thinking, you become predictable. And predictability makes you easy to control. Nietzsche's philosophy teaches us that true strength lies in restraint. Those who can resist the urge respond immediately, who can sit with their thoughts before speaking, who don't give away their emotions freely. These are the people who hold real influence. The moment you make yourself an open book, you lose the ability to shape how others perceive you. Imagine a negotiation. One person keeps talking, trying to convince the other, explaining their position over and over. The other sits quietly, nodding occasionally, saying very little. Who holds more power in that situation? It's the quiet one, because silence creates discomfort. It forces the other person to second-guess themselves, to fill in the blanks, to feel the weight of their own words. This is why Nietzsche saw silence as an advantage. The less you say, the more people try to figure you out. And the more they try to figure you out, the more control you have. But silence isn't just about withholding words. It's about knowing when to speak. Nietzsche didn't believe in complete isolation. He believed in precision. Every word should be intentional. Every statement should serve a purpose. He saw too many people wasting their energy on empty talk, on trying to prove themselves through words alone. He knew that true authority doesn't come from speaking. It comes from being heard. This is why powerful figures throughout history have understood the value of silence. The best leaders don't waste words. They don't explain unnecessarily. They don't seek approval through constant reassurance. They speak when it matters, and when they do, people listen. So ask yourself, how often do you speak just to fill the silence? How often do you reveal things that others didn't need to know? How often do you let your emotions dictate your words? Nietzsche would argue that if you cannot control your speech, you cannot control your fate. Because in a world where words are cheap, silence is priceless. Nietzsche believed that silence wasn't just the absence of speech. It was a tool, a strategy, a conscious choice that separated those who controlled their own lives from those who were controlled by others. He understood that the less you reveal, the harder it is for others to define you, label you, or manipulate. Think about how most people behave in conversation. They rush to fill every gap with words, fearing silence as if it means they have nothing to say. But Nietzsche knew that silence does something powerful. It forces others to react. When you speak less, people begin to wonder about it. They become curious. They start filling in the blanks themselves, often giving you more credit than you even intended. Silence shifts the power dynamic. The one who speaks less appears more in control. The one who holds back their thoughts forces others to lean in, to try and interpret what's going on in their mind. This is why those who master silence command more respect. It's not because they are smarter, but because they understand that scarcity increases value. The less you say, the more people listen when you do speak. Nietzsche saw this principle everywhere, especially in leaders and thinkers who shaped history. The strongest rulers weren't those who constantly explained their decision. They were the ones who let others wonder what they were thinking. A king who is unpredictable is far more powerful than one who is easy to read. A leader who speaks only when necessary is far more respected than one who talks endlessly. But silence isn't just about power. It's about survival. Nietzsche knew that the moment you reveal too much about yourself, you give others the ability to use it against you. He believed that those who speak without restraint are giving away pieces of themselves for free. Every personal detail, every thought shared without calculation is another weapon in the hands of someone who may not have your best interests in mind. Consider this. How many times have you shared something in confidence only to regret it later? How many times have you given away too much information only to have it come back to hurt you? Nietzsche would say that this happens because you underestimated the power of keeping things to yourself. Silence is not just about what you don't say. It's about protecting your energy, your emotions, and your position in choosing to reveal only what benefits them. The answer is obvious. Those who are too quick to speak lose respect. Those who know when to stay silent are the ones people turn to when it really matters. Nietzsche wasn't against conversation. He wasn't against expressing ideas, but he was against wasting words. He saw too many people talking just for the sake of it, revealing too much, trying too hard to be understood. He believed that true thinkers, true leaders, true individuals who shaped the world didn't seek validation through words. They let their actions, their presence, and their well-chosen moments of speech do the work. So the next time you feel the urge to fill the silence, ask yourself, do these words serve a purpose? Do they make me stronger, or am I giving something away? Because Nietzsche would tell you this: those who know how to stay silent when it matters are the ones who are truly in control. Nietzsche believed that people don't respond to reality itself, They respond to their perception of reality, and what you say, or don't say, plays a huge role in shaping that perception. This is why he understood that silence is not just about keeping things to yourself, it's about controlling how others see you. Imagine two people in a room. One talks constantly, explaining their thoughts, sharing their opinions, making sure everyone knows exactly what they think. The other speaks sparingly, carefully choosing their words, leaving gaps for others to fill with their own interpretation. Who do you think is perceived as more powerful, more mysterious, more in control? It's almost always the second person. This is because humans naturally assign value to what is rare. The more accessible something is, the less people respect it. The same applies to words. If you talk too much, if you explain everything, if you never leave any mystery, you make yourself ordinary. But if you speak rarely and precision, people assume you have something worth listening to. Your silence makes them curious, and curiosity is power. Nietzsche saw this in history. The most influential figures were not the ones who constantly explained themselves. They were the ones who let others wonder about them. When people don't fully understand you, they fill in the blanks with their own assumptions that often work in your favor. A person who speaks little is assumed to be intelligent, even if they aren't. A person who holds back their emotions is assumed to be composed, even if they're not. This is how perception works. This is why Nietzsche warned against the need for constant validation. Many people believe they must explain their thoughts and feelings to be understood, to gain approval, to prove themselves. But Nietzsche saw this as a mistake. The more you try to explain yourself, the more you give others control over your image. The more you justify yourself, the more you appear weak. Think about the way people react to confidence. If someone believes in themselves without needing to constantly defend their choices, others follow them. But if someone is always seeking reassurance, always explaining why they did something, always talking to prove a point, they seem unsure, less worthy of respect. Nietzsche knew that silence, when used strategically, signals confidence. He also knew that silence makes people uncomfortable, and that discomfort can be a tool. In any conversation, the one who speaks less forces the other person to reveal more. A well-timed pause can make someone rethink their position. A lack of immediate response can make them second-guess themselves. This is why Nietzsche saw silence as a way to shift power. When you control when and how you speak, you control how people see you. But silence doesn't mean doing nothing. It doesn't mean isolating yourself or refusing to engage with others. It means being intentional with your words. It means understanding that every time you speak, you're shaping how others perceive you. If you speak too much, you become ordinary. If you speak too little, you become a mystery. And in a world where perception is more powerful than reality, mystery is. So ask yourself, are you speaking because you have something to say? Or are you speaking because you're afraid of silence? Nietzsche would tell you this. Those who master silence, those who know when to speak and when to hold back, are the ones who shape how the world sees them. And in that, they find real power. Nietzsche understood something that most people ignore. Information is power. But power isn't about how much you know. It's about how much others think you know. And the more you reveal, the more you weaken your position. This is why he believed that those who control information, what they say, when they say, and to whom, are always in a position of strength. Think about it. The moment you reveal everything about yourself, your thoughts, your plans, your emotions, you give others the ability to predict you, to manipulate you, to use your own words against you. Every piece of information you share is like handing someone a tool they can use to build you up or break you down. Nietzsche warned again. He saw that most people expose too much of themselves without even realizing, giving away their secrets, their vulnerabilities, their intentions, often to people who don't deserve that level of access. Consider how people react to someone who is always talking about their next move. They become easy to anticipate. They lose their advantage, but someone who holds back, who reveals only pieces of what they think, keeps others guessing. That unpredictability creates a sense of mystery, and mystery breeds power. Nietzsche wasn't saying you should never speak or express yourself. He was saying you should be strategic about what you share. Not every thought needs to be voiced. Not every emotion needs to be displayed. Not every truth needs to be told to everyone. The greatest thinkers, leaders, and strategists in history understood this well. They didn't just have knowledge, they controlled who had access to it. Look at the people who command the most respect. Do they explain themselves constantly? Do they feel the need to prove their intelligence in every conversation? They understand that silence, restraint, and selective disclosure make others pay attention. When they do speak, people listen, because their words are rare and rarity creates value. Nietzsche believed that speaking too much is often a sign of insecurity. People who constantly explain themselves, who always justify their actions, who reveal every detail of their thoughts, these are the people who seek validation. They don't trust their own power, so they try to prove themselves with words. But true power doesn't come from explanation. It comes from control. The ability to decide what to reveal and what to withhold. The ability to make others uncertain, to make them wonder, to make them think. This is why controlling information is so important. It's not just about what you say, it's about what you don't say. The things you leave unsaid are just as powerful as the things you express. A well-placed silence, an unanswered question, an unfinished thought. These things make people curious, and curiosity gives you leverage. Think about the last time you were unsure about something. Maybe they didn't tell you exactly how they felt. Maybe they didn't react the way you expected. Maybe they held back when everyone else was speaking. How did that make you? Probably a little uncomfortable, probably a little more interested in figuring them out. That's the effect Nietzsche understood. When you control what you reveal, you control how others see you. And this is where most people fail. They confuse honesty with transparency. Nietzsche wasn't against honesty. He was against excessive honesty. There's a difference between being truthful and being an open book. A person who shares everything has no protection. A person who keeps certain things to themselves holds an advantage. So the next time you feel the urge to explain yourself, to defend your choices, to fill the silence with unnecessary words, stop. Ask yourself, does this serve me? Does this give me an advantage? Does this strengthen or weaken my position? Because Nietzsche would tell you that power doesn't belong to those who speak the most. It belongs to those who know when to stay silent. Nietzsche believed that predictability was one of the greatest weaknesses a person could have. If people always know what you're going to say, how you're going to react, or what your next move will be, you become easy to manipulate. The strongest individuals, the ones who shape the world, are the ones who cannot be easily read. Their silence, their restraint, their unpredictability make them untouchable. Think about the people in the ones who are the easiest to manipulate are often the most predictable. You know exactly what to say to get a reaction from them. You know how they will respond to pressure, to conflict, to flattery. And because of that, you can control them. Now, think about the ones who are harder to figure out. The ones who don't always react the way you expect. The ones who don't always say what's on their mind. You probably respect them more, maybe even fear them a little. That's the power of unpredictability. Nietzsche understood that humans crave certainty. We want to categorize people, to put them into boxes, to know what to expect from them. But the moment you become too easy to predict, you lose control. If your emotions are always visible, if your words are always the same, if people always know how you'll react, you give them a blueprint for manipulating. They will use your patterns against you. This is why Nietzsche saw unpredictability as a weapon. When people don't know how you will respond, they tread carefully. They don't know if you'll be kind or ruthless, open or reserved, aggressive or passive. That uncertainty forces them to respect you. It forces them to hesitate. It gives you the upper hand. Consider how powerful figures throughout history have used this principle. The greatest leaders, strategists, and thinkers never let others fully understand them. They changed their tone, their tactics, their approach depending on the situation. They understood that to control others, you must first make sure that no one can control you. Nietzsche didn't believe in chaos for the sake of chaos. He wasn't saying you should be inconsistent or reckless. He was saying that true power comes from being able to shift between different versions of yourself, depending on what the situation demands. Sometimes, silence is the best response. Other times, direct confrontation is necessary. The key is that others should never be able to predict which one you will choose. Think about the last time someone surprised you with their reaction. Maybe you expected them to argue, but instead, they stayed silent. Maybe you thought they would back down, but instead, they stood firm. Maybe you assumed they would explain themselves, but instead, they let the silence do the talking. How did that make you feel? Probably uncertain, probably more cautious around them in the future. That's the effect Nietzsche understood. When you are unpredictable, you force people to pay attention. They cannot dismiss you. They cannot assume they have figured you out. You become someone they have to respect, someone they have to take seriously, someone they cannot easily manipulate. This is why Nietzsche saw silence as a part of a larger strategy, not just a way to hold power, but a way to keep people from ever truly controlling you. If you speak less, if you react less, if you refuse to follow the patterns people expect, you become a mystery. And in a world that tries to label, categorize, and control you, being a mystery is one of the greatest advantages you can have. So ask yourself, are you predictable? Do people know exactly how you'll respond in every situation? Do they feel comfortable assuming they can read you? Because Nietzsche would tell you this: if people can anticipate your every move, they own you. But if you learn to control your reactions, to withhold information, to stay silent when needed, you own them. Most people want results instant. They want to speak now, act now, be noticed now. But Nietzsche knew that true power doesn't belong to those who rush. It belongs to those who wait, those who observe, who calculate, who strike only when the moment is right. He believed that the strongest minds are not the ones who act impulsively, but the ones who understand that patience is a weapon. Think of a hunter. A skilled hunter doesn't attack at the first sign of movement. They wait. They measure the distance. They let the prey come closer. They strike only when they are certain of the outcome. Nietzsche saw life in the same way. He believed that those who acted out of impulse, who spoke too soon, who reacted emotionally, were not in control. They were slaves to their own instincts. But those who could wait, those who could resist the urge to act immediately, were the ones who truly controlled their destiny. How many times have you seen people sabotage themselves because they couldn't be patient? They spoke too soon, revealing their thoughts before they needed to. They reacted emotionally instead of waiting to understand the situation. They made decisions based on short-term emotion rather than long-term strategy. Nietzsche saw this as weakness. He knew that the world rewards those who move with precision, not those who rush blindly to every opportunity. Strategic patience is not about doing nothing. It's about knowing when to act. Nietzsche saw that the most powerful people in history were not the ones who made the most noise. They were the ones who knew exactly when to make their move. They let others exhaust themselves, let their enemies reveal their weaknesses, let opportunities come to them instead of chasing every possibility. Then, when the moment was perfect, they struck. Look at the way people behave in a debate. The person who speaks first, who reacts instantly, who argues without thinking, often loses control of the conversation. But the one who waits, who listens, who lets the other person talk themselves into a corner, always ends up with the advantage. Nietzsche understood this. He saw that silence wasn't just about mystery. It was about giving yourself time to think, to plan, to ensure that when you did speak, your words carried weight. This applies to every area of life: relationships, business, personal growth, everywhere. The same rule applies. The one who can wait, who doesn't rush, who knows when to step forward and when to hold back, is always in control. The problem is that most people are too impatient to apply this. They want immediate results. They want to prove themselves right away. But Nietzsche knew that real power isn't in proving yourself in the moment. It's in positioning yourself for long-term success. Think about the most successful people you know. Are they the ones who rush into decisions, who react emotionally, who feel the need to constantly assert themselves? Or are they the ones who observe, who let others move first, who make decisions only when they are sure it benefits them? The answer is obvious. Nietzsche would tell you that the world is full of people who act without thinking, who move without strategy, who waste their energy on things that don't matter. If you want to separate yourself from them, you need to master the art of waiting. Not waiting passively, but waiting with intent, with awareness, with strategy. Because in the end, power doesn't belong to the fastest. It belongs to the smartest, to those who understand that timing is everything. Now that you understand Nietzsche's philosophy of silence, you have a choice. You can continue as you are, speaking whenever you feel the urge, reacting without thinking, letting others predict your move. Or you can start applying these principles, choosing your words carefully, controlling what you reveal, and mastering the art of restraint. Because silence isn't just about saying less, it's about creating impact. It's about making sure that when you do speak, people listen. Nietzsche believed that the world is designed to reward those who know how to play the game. And the game is not about being the loudest voice in the room. It's about being the most calculated, the one who speaks last, the one who lets others talk themselves into weakness, the one who controls not only what they say, but how they are perceived. This is the mistake most people make. They think power comes from being seen, from making noise, from constantly reminding the world they exist. But Nietzsche saw that real power belongs to those who move in silence, who act when the time is right, who never let others fully understand them. Because the moment people can label you, the moment they can predict you, they control you. But if you remain unreadable, if you master patience, if you control what you reveal, you become the one control. Think about how this applies in real life. The people who are most respected are not the ones who overshare, who explain themselves endlessly, who seek approval through words. They are the ones who are deliberate, who hold back, who let others wonder what they're thinking. They are the ones who make people lean in when they finally speak. Nietzsche didn't just write about philosophy, he lived it. He understood that most people are too impulsive, too emotional, too eager to prove themselves. And that's why they remain powerless. They give themselves away without realizing. They speak before they think. They react when they should observe. They move too soon when they should wait. But you don't have to make the same mistake. You don't have to let the world dictate your every move. You can choose to take control, to resist the urge to explain yourself, to let others talk while you listen, to make people curious instead of making yourself an open book, to know when to act and when to stay silent. Because silence is not weakness, it's not submission, it's a strategy. And those who master it are the ones who shape the world. So now the question is, will you keep playing by the old rules, or will you start using silence to write your own?